Hi, welcome to the Daiku Podcast. I'm Gary Snow. Today I'm joined by returning guest Joseph R. Lewis, author of Raiding the Obsidian Keep, as well as Liam Pádraig Ó Cuilleanáin, author of The Horrendous Hounds of Hendenburgh. Both authors are now having their critically acclaimed adventures reworked by the team of the Merry Mushmen, who are comprised of Olivier Revenu and Eric Nieudan, who is also joining us today. Gentlemen, welcome.
Hi, Gary. Thanks so much for having us back.
It's good to be here.
Especially on release night, on launch night.
Well, I appreciate that you have made time for us on a very busy day, I'm sure. It's already doing outstanding. I can see, as we talked about before we started recording, it's just ticking up constantly. You're doing very well. Obviously, it's products that people want to see and adventures that people want to see. But before we kind of get started into the adventure part of it, Eric, as part of the Merry Mushmen, what's your approach to kind of choosing the types of adventures? And obviously the one that you had done with Joseph before, the Nightmare Over Ragged Hollow, has been successful enough that you invited him back. And your adventure designing process and the layout of it, it's everybody's loving it. So just tell us, how does it flow for you? How do you choose your adventures and the process of that?
I'm going to say it's just like we see something we like and we just decide, should we do this? I like it. Do you like it too? Yes. And then we just get in touch with you, Joe. It was a bit different this time because you gave us a spread of a few that you thought could be good, because I haven't read everything you wrote because, I'm human. I only have 24 hours a day, and I don't know how you do it. But so we had a closer look and then decided to go for something a bit different in tone, because we don't want to be pinned down in the folklore story between the bestiary we did and Ragged Hollow, which wasn't folklore because it's also a horror story, a haunted house, if you will. But we decided to go for something different. Well, we had Liam's adventure. I actually went on Edge looking for the original adventure that I wanted to check something in, and I lost the PDF. So I went back to Edge and re-downloaded it. And I saw that the second commentary is from Olivier when you posted it first, saying, "Hey, I love this. I'm going to run it tomorrow." He hadn't told me that. So he was the one who sent that to me, and we decided to go for it and be back a little bit in the kind of folk horror. It starts in the folk horror, really, and then it has little. I think I wrote that on the Kickstarter page, so people know already. It has little bumps of fairy tale in it.
Well, one of the things, and for those that are living under a rock, most of my people that watch our channel would know that the Mushmen are responsible for Knock, the book. I mean, I would normally call it a zine, but look how thick this thing is nowadays. You just keep getting it thicker and thicker. And Knock is, I think, one of the preeminent OSR I guess publications that you can find out there. It's got a ton of gameable products or gameable situations and tools that you can bring into your game almost immediately. And then also I don't have the folklore bestiary, but I do have Ragged Hollow, and we'll be talking more about that. But one of the things I love about, first of all, I guess one of the things I'll always say is Olivier does an incredible job of layout, and I really would love to have him on the show. So I'm going to guilt him into this. Because I know
it'll happen soon.
He's always worried about his English, but hey, he speaks in beautiful layout and design and the artwork of there. But I love the one color themes for all these adventures. As we can see, if you flip through, this one has that kind of red ink tone in the one color. And as I was at a thrift store, and I was like, where do I know this stuff from? I came across these books. I don't know if anybody's ever seen these.
Absolutely. No. I absolutely know those. I grew up with those. They were in every doctor's office I ever stayed in as a child. I did tons of highlights magazines.
Yeah, and they are similar. That's not a good example, but they're similar as far as the one color pages and kind of the one color ink and that kind of stuff. Anyways, I could go down a rabbit hole of design. So hopefully we'll get Olivier on here at some point in the future. But we only have a limited amount of time because I know it's late. I know Eric and Liam are coming from France and Ireland respectively, and it's pretty late there. So I'm glad that we could make this happen today. But first of all, let's get into the Hounds of Hedenberg, or the Horrendous Hounds of Hendenburgh. And I just talked about the naming conventions of, I love the alliteration that the Mushmen provide, because the original one was just called Hounds of Hedenburgh, but the new one is called the Horrendous Hounds of Hendenburgh. And you can see the cover, as I mentioned, the fold out, it really has that like nice nostalgic vibe to it that you would see on the old TSR products. And here's the spread that you can see, and there's the backside of it with all the important maps and the key documents. But Liam, how did you come up with the idea for the adventure to begin with?
So it initially started, the original Hounds of Hendenburgh, as an entry for a dungeon jam for Cairn, which is Yokai Gal's system, sort of OSR, but very, very stripped down. I think probably the inspiration came from it was not long before that I'd gone to a wedding in Sussex in the very south of England. I think it was more the landscape there. It started bringing back these memories of like old Hammer horror pictures, stuff like The Witch, other kind of folk horror stuff. I think it was drawing a lot on that, really. So the idea with that jam was a town, a forest, a dungeon. And I don't know, I think it was initially through the legend of Black Shock, which is like sort of English folklore, big black hound, big black hound. And the thought process was probably, what if there was loads of them? Why are the hounds there? It's probably a little Game of Thrones influence as well, which I only realized after the fact, with the tyrant hunting people with hounds is very Ramsay Bolton from Game of Thrones. It's weird though with these things, I can only think about the inspirations for it in retrospect. When I'm actually writing, I don't really have a clear idea of where they're coming from. And then when I look back on it, thinking, okay, that's probably Ramsay Bolton. This one's a little bit The Witch. This one's a little bit a little bit Hammer horror. So it was those were kind of the influences I think that were at play when it kind of came together initially, you know.
And this is your first attempt right out of the gate, is it not?
I had written a few small things for 5e through the Dungeon Masters Guild before I abandoned that system, because in the course of a 4-year campaign, I just became more and more frustrated with it and moved then to OSR stuff. So there's a few things I would have written for 5e that are still online on drive-through. But yeah, it was the first OSR adventure I'd written, yeah.
And it got best category on Bryce's 10-foot pole website, which is very difficult to do. So that's, kudos to you for being able to do that. And when you first got that, what was your kind of reaction to it?
I was very pleased immediately, because before I realized he'd reviewed it, I'd been like following the stats for sales on drive-through and itch. And I just suddenly saw this like enormous jump. I started immediately thinking, okay, what could be causing this? And then I checked 10-foot pole and saw it had gotten the rating. So yeah, Bryce's reviews do carry a lot of weight. I mean, I think it could potentially have remained in obscurity a little bit if it hadn't been for getting that rating, which I appreciate. He does have very clear kind of high standards. So getting that kind of feedback from someone that respected, whose reviews are that respected in the community, made a big difference to the adventure, and probably stopped it from being just another PDF kind of floating on the internet, you know.
And maybe I'll have Eric jump in here and just talk about the art that we're kind of flipping through, and the spectacular art, and obviously the layout that Olivier brings to it.
Just on the subject of Bryce and 10-foot pole, I'm just terrified that he will pick up one of the adventures we published and decide they're not the best anymore for some reason.
Downgraded.
Yeah. I don't want to be making them worse.
Well, I've had Bryce on the show. I'll put the links up above. Everybody can learn about Bryce and his. He can be quite mean to his reviewer on some of his reviews, and that's kind of his shtick. And so that's just kind of part of the whole thing that he does. But I don't think that's going to be the case for this one.
Again, when it comes to choosing illustrators and choosing visuals and anything, I only have a tiny bit of input, and I can only transmit any words of praise to Olivier directly, because that's his thing. It's very rare that he sends me something where I have any notes. He just seems to have the vision of, who is going to be working on this adventure with whom, and what's the vibe going to be. And I was like, when I saw the first, I'd seen the sketches, like you've seen the PDF. There's a few sketches from Bruno still in there. We're waiting for a couple more illustrations. But when I saw almost everything put into the PDF, I just had to step back from the screen, because it's so, like, the lines are so energetic. It's like, again, a really, really good choice. You have to have seen Bruno's webcomics that are linked, I think, in his bio on the Kickstarter, if you want to have a look to have an idea of exactly what he's capable of doing. I don't think I have anything else to say.
Well, it is fantastic. I've got the links in the video description, so everybody can check all those things. But back to the adventure, Liam, like, I think one of the things that people love, including Bryce, is that it's like you've created a situation that's got all the elements that everybody kind of likes in a good adventure. It's got a little bit of humor, it's got a little bit of scary stuff, it's got like human connections, and just like kind of human nature of like all the crazy things that humans do, and the bad things and the good things and all that kind of stuff. How did you come up with we already talked a little bit about the overarching part of it, but the scenarios, like, how long did it take you to kind of flesh out all those different factions and the different stories and NPCs that all work so nicely together?
It just kind of generated naturally when I was thinking of, like, okay, I have to populate this village with NPCs. I do like having there being this kind of web of interrelationships. I think it makes a place feel more lived in when you know that, say, the butcher is arguing with the fishwife because she had an affair with the blacksmith's cousin, all this kind of thing, so it just kind of really happened naturally, especially when this was initially a game jam where there was a time limit. I just sort of started typing and thinking, okay, how can this person connect to this person? And then it just kind of became denser and denser as it went forward, and more so actually for the new version, because there's an additional faction. There's more NPCs with more relationships going on. Weirdly, with this one, I think a big influence on it was actually The Witcher 3, The Wild Hunt. With that game, the most interesting parts I found were just the little plot lines connecting peasants, like just the everyday people, and then it becomes substantially less interesting when the scale gets big and you're talking about princes and kings. And I think anyone who's ever ran a game knows that your players might not give a damn about the chosen one or the space pope or the king of kings, but they'll fight and die and murder and do anything to save the porter that you just randomly came up with when they were looking to talk to an NPC. So I really do like focusing on that really base level detail of just the characters they're encountering, without these necessarily being anything significant or amazing, just interesting. And these are the characters that players will hate or like or fall in love with. I just like that level of granular detail when it comes to the world. It's world building on a at the sort of micro scale, you know.
Yeah, it's a very intimate setting, and there's also, as many OSR games, or the style of OSR is like, it's a situation with no certain outcome. Like, I mean, it's just like you throw the players into the situation and kind of see what happens, with a lot of different variations of how it could play out. There's no railroading in this adventure, correct?
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I like both in design. There's nothing interesting to me about running, I don't know, one of the Pathfinder sort of legendary epic length railroads. Like, for me, if you're kind of entering into a campaign or about to open up something as a GM, one of the things that interests me most is I don't know what's going to happen. There's nothing interesting for someone running a dungeon or running an adventure when you know how it's going to conclude. The exciting thing for the players, as much for the GM as much as the players, is, well, I wonder how this will turn out. In fact, it was really great finding out from people who'd ran the original how things have played out in each scenario. And that's kind of the design philosophy then, is you make the situation as taut and bursting and complex as possible. And it's like the players running in like a bull in a china shop, and you just don't know what way the china shop's going to look after they've barged in, you know?
Yeah.
I'm always kind of hoping that he will not fix the problem and just run away, because I can just go back to that location a month, a year later, and then it's become a horrible thing that's going to vomit chaos and death all around, and that'll be their fault.
And so, Liam, the difference between the first one and the second one, did any of that kind of feedback from the players that ran the adventure, or DMs that ran the adventure, that came back to you, did that help inform any kind of design elements in the next iteration that we're looking at now?
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of the points that were made by people, friendly criticism, were things like there's a lot of NPCs in the game. So it was suggested that like a relationship map or an NPC cheat sheet would help, and that is in the final adventure, just a two-page spread with all the major NPCs and their relationships. Even very minor kind of granular things like some people had trouble keeping track of where all the NPCs in the village were. So that's in the adventure as well, a map with each location, and then where with an NPC tied to each location to make it easier for DMs to keep track of it. There were some criticisms of the original Tyrant's Tomb, which is like the kind of centerpiece dungeon. About, say, one of the encounters, the way it worked, maybe kind of a lack of variety. And again, that was taken into account of. So when anyone who was friendly enough to kind of have a look and say, okay, I liked this, but here's something we struggled with, or here's something I would have liked it done differently, I was listening. So they do go into that adventure, and this is very much based on both an improvement of the original one, plus tons of additional content, probably like 3 times as much content, I would say, in this versus the original.
Well, it looks like a fun little adventure. And so what levels is this set for?
So it's recommended for levels 2 to 4.
2 to 4. Cool. Okay, let's get on to the Obsidian Keep here, the Raiding the Obsidian Keep. And once again, fabulous cover. I love the foldouts and the maps that kind of go along with it. And I guess... Joseph, give us a little bit about like the history of how this concept came to be.
Sure. Well, the original, the Obsidian Keep, was mostly an inspiration probably taken from reading something like Deep Carbon Observatory, where you're exploring a recently destroyed or damaged or transformed landscape. And in that original adventure, it was about a flooded landscape. In this case, it was I wanted to create a battlefield, but one that was water-based and ship-based, because I personally have a preference for things that are coastal and things that are on the water. I grew up around the Chesapeake Bay, and I spent a lot of time in my youth cleaning boats and occasionally sailing them, but mostly cleaning them. So there's a lot of nostalgia and love for those sort of nautical things. So the adventure starts with you going to investigate a fleet of good guys went to fight some bad guys, and they never returned. So the adventure is to go and check that out. In the first setting, you're in the harbor where the great naval battle happened, and there's sunken ships, and there's stranded sailors, and there's some sea monsters. So you get to explore all of those after effects. So something very bad has just happened, people are suffering from it, and probably bad things are about to happen again. Then you get to the beach, and there's more refugees, and you see that people have come down from the castle that was attacked. So there's a mingling, there's some factions. Again, all these people are suffering from situations. They need help. Some of them they're about to pop. Bad things are about to happen. And then finally, you get to the actual castle itself, the Obsidian Keep, where all the bad things happen, and you get to start to unravel the mystery or the history of what just happened. Because there have been lots of rumors and hints and signals of what could have happened, but no one knows the story until you actually get there, and you get to explore that. And that's something else I really like to do when I play a game, is I love to uncover the history and the mystery of what happened and learn all the bits and pieces and put the pieces together and get the whole story. So I was trying to do all of those things all at once, and it worked okay.
Well, I'd say it worked okay, and I think there's some the moral quandary, I guess, of like there's survivors on the island and how much you're willing to help the survivors and solve the problem itself is something. And then I couldn't help but see on the review of the one situation where there's somebody on a life raft with a shark fin circling as to a random encounter there, or one of the encounters. As far as the kind of the tone of it and that kind of thing, how much is pirates and how much is fantasy and that kind of thing? Because I know that's always the trouble that I always have with a lot of water-based or ship-based adventures, is they kind of feel like, oh, is this a pirate thing or is this a fantasy thing?
Oh, sure. I think in this instance, it was not aiming for like a Pirates of the Caribbean, any kind of feel like that. I've also read a lot of Horatio Hornblower and Master Commander sorts of things, and Moby Dick type things, 19th century sailing novels when those were popular. And of the movies too, there's so few good old style sailing movies like Master and Commander, where you just get the sense of this enclosed space and how hard it is to live and work and survive, and you spend a lot of time. None of that's in the game, but I love that realism and the tension that comes from it, and the danger that's just always lurking. You could catch on fire, you could fall overboard, and that's very real and terrible. So I think I was leaning more into the realism of the horror of this situation, of having your ship sunk, of being stranded, of starving, of being stuck on an island or a rock, not knowing if you're ever going to be rescued. So I think it was more that bleak, dark horror fantasy that I was leaning for, rather than maybe the fun or the camp of a pirates setting.
And then once again, you probably adhere to the situation-based adventure, as far as like you put the scenario out there for a lot of people to kind of just like start plucking around. Did you receive feedback from the original play tests or the players that bought the adventure? And then how did that help inform your changes or updates?
Most of the feedback I got in those early years, and the feedback from my own playtest, was just that everyone had a lot of fun. They thought it was interesting. They wished that they had gotten around to see more of the objects and the sort of the point crawl locations in the harbor and on the beach, just because there were so much stuff. I could have made them much bigger to make them more realistic, but I don't think people would have gotten to see them. And so that all felt really good. The part that felt less good is that after you explore this landscape and you get to the castle at the end, I think I had kind of run out of steam when I was writing this. So when I got to the castle, I sort of abstracted 7 tiers, 7 layers or stories to the building. So I just sort of described what's on the first floor, just generically, you're in a space. And the second floor, you're in a space. It was not a room by room dungeon in the traditional sense, because I just kind of wanted to wrap it up and provide the answers for what happened, to the mystery of what happened on this island. So this was a fantastic opportunity to clean up that ending and to give a fully featured room by room, level by level dungeon castle to explore. And I'm really glad we did. It was an opportunity to pull in my early influences like Castlevania. Everything ends up coming back to some kind of vampire thing for me somehow, even if there's no vampires. There is one vampire in this. But
From space.
they're all of my vampires are from space, because where else would they come from? But yes, so I wanted to create a fully featured dungeon, lots of rooms, lots of traps, lots of more detailed history and mystery clues about what happened here. And I think it came together really well with all of the art and all of the suggestions from Eric and Olivier. I'm pretty proud of what we put together.
Well, it looks great. And so, Eric, tell us, how long does it take to kind of turn these around, and what's the process like as far as like from the initial reach out to like sourcing the art and like updating the content and working remotely via distance and that kind of thing as a team?
It doesn't take that long if that's all we were, if that was all we were doing at the time. There's always a lot of balls in the air with the Mushmen and also other life stuff happening. I don't know. When did we start, guys? When did we start working on these? Like 6 months ago, something like that?
Well,
Maybe more.
You and I were talking. We started talking about this last summer, I think.
Okay,
maybe late
so
last
a
summer.
year. Damn, that's bad. We need to get better at this. But the process is simple. Like there is we agree on since it's expanding and rewriting. We can already see what's there and what we think is missing, and we can expand it. The both of you had great suggestions to what you would like to add, and we didn't have anything to or much to add to that. Then the manuscript comes, and then we start digging into the details. From that fire trap damage would kill any second level character, and probably also a 5th level wizard. So let's dig that. Let's dial that back into. Let's rework. Let's have a whole hex crawling procedure for the Cryptwood, for example. Olivier wrote one to make it something that is in the book, and you don't have to go and look into your rule set, even if OSC is pretty much perfect and has everything you need. I think it's kind of interesting to have those, even the random encounters. Since Ragged Hollow, we kind of came up with our own D20 based system with no 1d6 encounter on a 1 every 2 turns kind of thing. So we can add more atmospheric events more than encounters and monsters that jump at you. We just dig into the text and turn it and make it squeak and see what comes out, and sometimes move shit around, and that's pretty much it. Olivier goes to layout really early. Like I was disabled for a few months in the winter and couldn't work too much. So a lot of stuff went into the layout before having been properly entirely edited by myself, and then I had to catch up and edit directly in the layout, which was a bit painful, but we made it happen. Don't worry, there's always someone to go after me. Ava Islam is doing a really good job at proofreading at the moment, so I'm not expecting too many typos and too many inconsistencies, even if you know how it works. They often end up there. And when layout happens, Olivier always has a really good idea of what should go anywhere. The art brief doesn't come before. Like I've worked with publishers that had like a quota of how many full page, half page, and quarter pages, and then kind of end bits, bottom of the column kind of stuff. And we would order this first, looking at a manuscript, and then the layout would happen before the art. But Olivier works entirely differently. plumps the text on the page, makes it work. Sometimes has like corners where like I get a PDF with a little pink. There's space here. Do you want to add something? How about this? And it's very organic. Like it's not as mad and crazy and chaotic as Nock is, but it's still a very like biological.
And I'm looking at the rewards and the levels here. So just to, I guess the one big question is the decision to have the double adventures together, like the double feature. Did you think at one time, oh, maybe we should just do one at a time? And or in true Mushman fashion, did you just say, let's do it, and we're gonna throw them both out there and see what happens?
No, it was a let's do it moment, because at the beginning of the year we met and started putting projects on schedule that we've entirely ignored since then, I must say. But we really we have a lot of ideas, a lot of projects in the pipeline. A couple of manuscripts are on my desk that I haven't dug into yet. So, you know, it's little modules. People will probably be able to buy two at the same time. No one's getting any younger, so let's do it.
And so to break it down, we've got, you can get PDF, digital and print of all the different adventures, as well as you can do a collective of the Hounds and Obsidian Keep together, as well as a triple threat here. Where it seems like you can get the whole collection, and if you missed out on Joseph's first Ragged Hollow adventure, that you can add that in as well. So you can get caught up pretty quickly here. If you have not bought that yet, you can actually get all three at the same time, and you can even do doubles. And I think you also have you encourage, if there's any friendly local game stores out there that want to sell it, to reach out, and you can reach out and figure out how to do that for them.
Yeah, we've had in all our other Kickstarters, I think we've had like a retailer level with 20 books or 10 books. This thing was getting too complex. There are already too many backer levels, so we didn't do that. But yeah, we'll talk and take a proper order and make it like, you know, the pros do.
So I think it's obviously, let's see if I look, I didn't look that closely, but we're already up to 100,000 Canadian, which maybe that doesn't add up to a lot in other currencies because Canadian money is so worthless. But you guys are doing extremely well. It just launched today, and it's going to go for 20 days. So don't sleep on this, people watching at home. You've only got 3 weeks here to kind of back it. All the links to the Kickstarter and each person's it's been contributing to it is also in the description. You can find a little bit more about them. But I guess I should ask before we kind of leave off here, what's everybody else up to? Like maybe Eric, we'll start back with you. Like what you said, you got manuscripts on your desk. This is I can't help but wonder about the this one up here is JRL1. So I didn't look that closely, but I see that there's probably different codes. There's probably a Liam code for his. And as far as that goes, like, what's the future plan for these? Because I imagine you could probably do a lot more of these, and they're all going to be successful.
Well, we'll see. Maybe people will get bored after a while, but we'd like to keep going, to have like a dozen of them in a couple of years. And be able to kind of have that spread where you can just say, you know, pick the adventure you need for your campaign, or decide you're going to play them all in more or less the level order, because that would be really cool. Like Olivier and I both had collections of TSR modules back in the day, quite a few decades from now. But there's like more than a little bit of nostalgia in this, in the way we're doing this.
Well, I love that it's like nostalgia with modern sensibilities of the design elements, and it's like the perfect combination. It makes you feel a certain way, but it also has nice, clear, concise information, and the information design in the modules is fabulous. As you know, I'm a big fan of all the Mushmen work in that area. But so I think you can probably keep going. My hunch is that you can probably keep going for a long time, and this is going to be a popular style of adventure.
We'll try our best.
And Liam, how about yourself? What's next on the horizon for you?
So in terms of RPG stuff, I'm currently working on bringing an adventure to publication for Shadow Dark. So that's already been play tested and written. It's just right now at the layout and art stages. I'm also working on a swords and sandal themed funnel adventure for Old School Essentials. So for fans of Caligula or I Claudius or that sort of thing. So those are both in the pipeline, and hoping to have at least one of those out by the end of the year.
Cool. And where can people find you?
People can find me on my itch page, so itch.io, and it's Budapest Kick. They can follow me on Twitter. There's a website under construction, but when it's there, I'll put it up on Twitter and itch so people can find us.
Sounds good. And Joseph, what's next for you?
Oh gosh. Well, the thing I just put out a week ago, I made a tiny tomb. It's only 5 pages long and in 3 different systems, called Tomb of the Blood Baron. So if you want to do a quick little one shot, I think you should go grab it because it's free. It's pay what you want over on Drive-Thru. Tomb of the Blood Baron. I'm going to do a whole bunch of these tiny tombs because I want to write short things for a little bit, because I'm also in the middle of playtesting something that's not small at all. I'm writing a game where I took Chris McDowell's Into the Odd system, and I took Emmy Allen's Depth Crawl system, and I've created a nautical adventure, which is sort of Jason and the Argonauts meets the Pirates of the Caribbean. And it's playtesting has been a lot of fun, and I have a bunch of great artists contributing their art for the book, and hopefully that will be out this summer. So look for The Undying Sea eventually.
Well, I want to just say thank you to each of you for joining me. I know that all the different time zones, we made it work, so that's fabulous. And the Kickstarter looks like it's going to be a huge success, and I can't wait to see more adventures from the Mushmen in the future. You guys always do just a fabulous job, and we're going to get Olivier on the show to talk about the layout and graphic design.
Absolutely.
We should.
And if you are an indie game designer, you must know by now my channel is devoted entirely to indie games, and you will not find any 5e or anything on here. But if you have a game that you want to promote on the channel, feel free to reach out. Go to daikugames.com/gamepitch and tell them that Game Pitch Gary sent you.
Hey friends, are you looking for a game that is not Dungeons or Dragons? Well, we got exactly what you need at Daiku Game Pitch. We got zines, we got OSR, we got adventures. But wait, there's more. We got solo games, we got journaling games, we even got card games and dice games. Oh hell, I don't even know what kind of game this is, but we got it. And if you visit us in the next 2 minutes, you're gonna get all the Zine Quest, Zine Months, Itch Fund and Backer Kits, Kickstarters that you can't handle. Visit us at www.daikugames.com and tell them a Game Pitch Gary sent ya.